Hey everybody, thanks for stopping in at the Red Barn. In today's episode, we're going to use the hydraulic tubing bender, we're going to use the cold saw, and we are going to make the rear lower transmission pickup point cradle. It's a little bit of a fabrication geek fest, and I do get into a bit of detail. So let me know what you think about that. Leave me a comment or any questions down below. But let's see how we do. Okay, so what are we doing under here? Well, today we're going to make the mount that picks up this point on what I'm calling this pivoting link. So in the Ferrari 360, the chassis has a big beam that runs across the back of it right here with some tabs that pick up this mount. And obviously I can't do anything like that. This chassis is completely different. But what we are going to be able to do is take advantage of these threaded bungs that are at the end of the engine cradle, and we're going to use those as a pickup point for a set of tubes, or a hoop essentially. It's going to come back from here, back to here, come across, head back up, and connect to the other side with some tabs that pick up this pivoting link. And the way they're going to attach to the cradle is we're going to use these. They're like roll bar cage disconnectable mounts for making a component of a roll bar, of a roll cage, removable. Now when I say roll cage, these are for 1-inch tube, which is what we're going to use for this. So the basic design is, you know, a 1-inch tube welds onto each side. This side I've already taken it to the lathe and turned down so that it just fits right into that hole. It's not going to thread in, but it just fits into that hole as a locator. But anyway, you know, given that it's 1-inch tube, it's not so much a roll cage component as maybe like a removable bumper or a spare tire carrier or something. So again, we're going to make a mount that hoops back to this point, and then we'll have additional struts that run up to the back of the car to support it as needed. But anyway, we will now take some time to work out some dimensions to figure out what angle things need to be at and what lengths and widths they need to be, and then we'll go ahead and make a tube. So that'll be so exciting. We'll be right back to do that. Okay, so I've worked out the dimensions of the tube that I want to make, and what I've done is drawn it on the table, and it's the width that the quick disconnects, the unboltable disconnects are. That's the width of the lower cradle mounts that we're going to bolt everything to, weld those connectors to. And then the tube set is going to come out, bend in a little bit, come back and run underneath, where it'll have those tabs, 2 tabs that pick up the pivoting link. And then importantly, I've marked the center of the shape. It's a symmetrical shape, but this center line becomes important because we're going to use that to figure out how to make all these bends and where on the tube we're going to put those bends. And the way we do it is by using a cheater tube, they call it. And what it is I've taken a piece of the same material, the 1-inch tubing, and I've put it in the bender. It was much longer than this, doesn't matter. I made a 90-degree bend. And on it, you can see there's a slight deformity right where the bend starts. That's what the tubing bender will do. Most tubing benders, you know, you're deforming the tube, you're stretching it on the outside, you're compressing it on the inside, and as much as it tries to keep a perfect shape, there is some deformity, but it works out to our advantage as you'll about see. But anyway, we know where that tube is going to start to bend. And what I've done is I've marked it so I can more easily see it and continually reference the same point. But now I've got this shape I want to make, and I got a piece of tubing over here that I want to, you know, make it look like my drawing. How do I do that? Well, if I take this cheater tube and I set it down, and by the way, this is an outside drawing. This is where the bending or everything fits inside of this, if you will. So if I take this tube and I'm just sighting straight down its edge and lining it up with the edge of my drawing, I'm going to slide it over until whatever part of this radius touches visually the line where I want it to end up. And what I've left with is, if I now mark on my drawing where that bend line on my cheater tube tells me the bend is going to start, I now know if I measure from the center line of my tube, and I'll mark that here in a second, if I measure out that distance, if I put it into the bender and start the bend right there, I know that I can get that tube with the right amount of bend in it to come down exactly where I want it. And I now know, because I'm making a symmetrical part, if I duplicate that measurement onto the other side and repeat, I can make this part fit exactly the way I want it to fit. Now, what angle do I need to bend that at? Well, I have this biggish protractor, and all I do is just line this up on here, same thing, put it in line with wherever you want, where you want one edge to be, and then adjust accordingly, lock it down. And I don't really care what the value is, because I'm not going to plug it into a computer and have it duplicate it for me, but I can use this as a visual reference, as you're about to see. So I've got my bend angle helper set up. I know my measurement. So now, if I take my tube and find center, so I cut this at 60 inches. So at 30 inches, I'm going to make a mark. Now I've got the center line of my bend, or excuse me, center line of my tube, and I'm just going to transfer that to a few other places so I can more easily see it. Now I'm going to measure from the center line of my drawing, and I'm doing what's called burning an inch. That's our term, or my term for it anyway. I'm not going to try to line up the end with anything. I like to go to a more easily repeatable location, which is the 1 inch mark. And if I come out here and look at where that is drawn, it's just a tick under 4 7/8. So I'm going to come over to my tube, and I'm going to come back and do the same thing. And I'm going to remember that I'm burning an inch. And so a tick under 5 7/8 on my rule. I'm going to make a mark. And that is where I want to make that, that's where I want that bend to start. Okay, so we now know where we need to position this tube in the bender. And let me just take you over to the bender real quick and give you the nickel tour. So this is the bender I use. It's a Hausfeld. It used to be a manual bender. That's how it was originally, that's how it left the factory, if you will. But it's been converted with this big ram. And it's driven by a electric motor and a hydraulic pump. And it works just great. Anyway, and for those of you that may not be familiar with benders, the way they work, the contraption-ness of this is, there's a radius die. This is the shape we want the tube to be bent into, or the radius we want the bends to be. This is a 1 inch tube, 3 inch OD radius. This is what I call the clamping die, and when you see the tube in there, you'll see that these two pieces help hold the tube in place. And then if I come around the other way, this is called the shoe, and as the ram drives this portion around the center of the die, the shoe is what forces the tube into the die and forces it to bend. So let me get everything set up. All right. And I take my tube and load it into the bender. All right, and here we go. Oh, I should have pointed out, probably can't see it, but there's a mark on the die that says this is where the bend starts. So if I line that point up with my mark where I want the bend to start, I can confidently hit the go button and know that everything's going to be where I want it to be and end up where I want it to end up. So everything's in position where I want it. And to prevent any slippage at all from happening, because sometimes these tubes can scoot because there's a fair bit of force being put on them, I'm going to use a pair of copper lined vice grips, and I'm going to butt them right up against the clamping die and crank this thing down a little bit so that it can't pull the tube into the radius. Okay, now with my protractor, I'm just going to eyeball this bend. And there is what's called springback, and that is when you get to a certain point, the material isn't going to just stay there. It's got a property that wants it to return to its natural position. So it's going to relax back a little bit. So you got to go a bit past the angle you actually want. So anyway, let's go ahead and bend this tube. What happened? I ran out of travel. What do I do? Just kidding. Here's what we do. This is all set up to take care of just exactly this. So I'm going to turn it back on and retract it. And I'm going to go through the process of resetting this arm so that this amount of travel can push this component of the bender farther around that corner. I can actually do like 180-degree bends with this. It's just a multi-step process. So hold on one second. Now I'm turning it off because I want to show you one other thing. Let me get my tape. Let's say this is exactly the perfect amount of bend. We don't know yet because we haven't checked it against our drawing. But let's say it's the perfect amount of bend. I'd love to be able to repeat that on the other side without having to guess. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from a fixed point on the ram out to a fixed point on the other end of the ram, part that moves. And I'm going to record that number, and it happens to be 18 and 13/16. You might wonder what all this scribbling is up here. It's what I do with a mark that I'm trying to replicate. So I said 18 and 13/16. Okay. And now I'm going to retract this and take the tube out. Now, once it's bent, it's really pretty simple. It's very simple to get it back into the exact right position because it's got so much curve in it now that it snaps sort of right back into the die. So it's safe to take it out. Just remember what position everything was in so you can repeat it. And out comes the tube. Now let's see how we did. You can see that I've got it lined up across the top, and if you come down here, oh look, I'm almost there, but my line disappears. So I got to go more. Know how far out I can go without adding any more bend. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Go right back to where we were. So there's where we were. gets to be a little bit of like, okay, how much more? And you gotta get used to your machine and kind of come up with it. And we're back to, let's see how we did. Center line on center line. Try to get my big head out of the way. Center line on center line. Sighting down the edge of the tube on line. Ooh, look at that. I'm gonna have to take this down here and show you. And now you can see, I think you can see, boom, there's our line. And we are right on where we want to be. Bam, as they say, and you heard me say before. Bam. So cool. All right, now we can just duplicate that same setup on the other side. Okay, some of you are already probably thinking ahead going, wait a second, your first bend doesn't matter because you're just putting a bend in the tube. But now you're trying to make a symmetrical bend, meaning you want it to be in the same plane as this bend. How do you do that? And the answer is, unfortunately with this bender, trying to use level gauges and all that stuff is tricky because, I don't know if you can see, but this is sort of flexible and depending upon where it lands and all that good stuff, and then when you turn it on, it vibrates a lot. So as crazy as it sounds, the way I do this is I eyeball it. And you might think, that's crazy. And I would say, yeah, but it is what it is. And as you'll see, even if I screw this up, I won't screw it up by much. If this has a bit of rock in it, it's thin enough material that I can tweak it. Now, if I'm doing, 120 wall roll bars, not so much. You got to get a little bit more accurate, but I do the best I can. And yeah, there's probably measuring devices that I could use, but let's see how I do. See how I do. That looks pretty good. Maybe a tick up. Okay. And we know our measurement, right? Because we know. All right, let's see how we did. So I told you we might, not a great job on the rock there, but I'll show you what we do about that. But bend angle wise, with that centered, we are on that line, and we are on that line. We are good. Okay, so that part's good. This, not so good. This leg is high, so it needs to be tweaked down. And bam. So, we're good on that. All right, now it's the same thing down here. And there is our tube. Now I just need to trim the length to right there, because that's how I set it up. So I know where my distances are. I'm going to check them in the car first, but there's one rear crossbar, fourth transmission, well, fourth drivetrain mount. And now let's see how it fits. A little bit of the undercar tour. I got a little stand set up here to test it, but you can see what I'm aiming for is I'm aiming to get that one over that bung. And if our precise measurements are right, this one will go over that bung, like that. Now, I told you I was still gonna have to trim it, but you can see here, right, it's long. So I just need to measure up how far I want to take those back so that the bar ends up right about, about there. And we'll be all set. But yeah, look at that, fits. Who'd have thought? So let's just trim these ends to length. I've measured and marked, and I've got them clamped in the cold saw. I'm gonna go ahead and make a couple of cuts, and this piece will be done. And I'm just gonna check where that blade hits my mark. It's hitting it just about perfect. I want to leave the mark, so clamp it down. Make the second cut. Man, this thing is a joy. It just makes cutting stuff a non-event. And it makes such a nice cut. Let's knock out whatever chip there might be. Get a quick wipe down. And let's go see how we did. So it's not completely, it's just set in place, but you get the idea. There's our gap to the tabs. What is that? Maybe a fat quarter, skinny 3/8. It may need to get trimmed a little bit farther back if I so decide, but there it is, all fit. It'll go forward a little bit more because, again, it's just sitting in there and it wants to rock back just because of the weight. But anyway, yeah, so there's a nice underside view of the whole mounting setup. I'm really happy with that. I think it looks great. Well, all right, one step closer to having this thing on the road, and it looks good. It looks good from up top too. We still have to add the struts, one on each side, from somewhere back in here up to a plated area that has yet to be done on the chassis. Got to provide a bit more support for that. But I hope you enjoyed that episode, and let me know if you like that much detail and technical overview and fabrication, here's how I do it sorts of stuff. Leave me a comment down below or any questions and I'll get to it as quick as I can. But thanks again for watching. Take care.